Hey, Sneak Peekers, I'm Andrew, and welcome to the very first episode of the Sneak Peek podcast. Before we get into everything and introduce ourselves, I really just want to be able to talk about why we wanted to make this in the first place. And as some of you may know, Sneak Peek is the live entertainment news show at the University of Texas at Austin as part of Texas Student Television, where we cover everything in the entertainment industry. And a lot of our content revolves around pre-recorded segments, interviews, live segments, panels. And one thing that really is left out of our show is this kind of long format topic or long format type of segment where we can really take a deep dive into all of the niches and different crannies and nooks in the entertainment industry. So this podcast will do exactly that. We'll be able to have one a week, one every other week, whenever we're feeling, and just kind of explore any topic that we really want to that may not either fit the show's theme that week or just may go over the time that we're allowed. So before we get started, I'd love everyone to introduce themselves, starting with Gavin.
Oh, okay. Cool. So, hey, Sneak Peekers, I'm Gavin. I'm a sophomore radio, television, film major here at UT. And I got involved in the entertainment industry at a pretty young age. I moved out to LA when I was 9 for a couple months and did some child acting. It didn't go anywhere, but I developed a passion for the industry. And now I'm currently wanting to do screenwriting, preferably for television.
Hey y'all, I'm Anna Kay. I'm a senior communication and leadership major with a minor in RTF. I've always been super passionate about film and TV, but I never really knew if there was a space for me in it until joining Sneak Peek and meeting so many amazing people and adding my minor and spending my summer in LA. And I'm just excited to see where that path takes me.
Yeah, and I'm Samia. I'm a senior communication and urban studies double major, and I don't even aspire to work in the entertainment industry, but I've always been extremely passionate about entertainment, especially having grown up in Austin with such amazing festivals and opportunities to get involved. And a big reason why I'm studying what I am studying is because I want to work to advocate and preserve the arts.
Definitely. Y'all are all so cool. So for this first episode, we thought it was only fitting, and we very much wanted to be able to cover and give our opinions on the strikes that are going on, both with the WGA and SAG-AFTRA. And so just a little background to get things started. The WGA started their strike on May 2nd, 2023, making it 128 days long today, which is Friday, September 8th, 2023. The longest strike in history is 154 days, which happened during 1988, and I don't think ours is going to stop anytime soon. I'm sure that ours is going to overtake that and be the longest strike in history, and for good reason. The WGA is fighting for a lot of different things, but mainly I think they are fighting for better pay, stability for writers, keeping AI out of the writer's room, and improving pay and residuals for streaming. So I just kind of want to get y'all's general thoughts about the strike, how y'all been feeling about it so far, and why, if you agree or don't agree with the things that they're fighting for.
Gavin?
All right. Yeah, sure. I'm very much in favor of the strikes. I think it's necessary. As someone that wants to go into television writing, screenwriting in general, I think that we absolutely need to have, protections for writers. I feel like we're in very much a shifting industry, as it always tends to do. But if nothing else, I think that these last 15, 20 years or so have really pushed towards a shift in, film and television creation being overseen by massive, tech conglomerates, media conglomerates, industries that aren't necessarily, traditionally aligned with the arts. And I think that as a result, there has been less of an emphasis on, creating good things and creating good art. And in turn, I think that that's led to sort of a disrespect on a financial level and on a production level to the creatives that make these content pieces or films, TV.
Yeah, for sure. I am 100% in support of both the WGA and the SAG strikes. This summer, I got to be in Los Angeles with the University of Texas at Los Angeles program. And I was an intern in scripted TV development at 2 different companies. So I just really got to see firsthand that flow and how that was affecting different companies. Was really interesting. I also got to walk the WGA picket line outside the Disney lot, which was a super crazy and really cool experience to be a part of history and just to talk with so many writers, and got to do it with a lot of Texas alums and got to meet writers and just hear their stories and their struggles and what it's been like graduating from the University of Texas and going into such a hard industry and why they're fighting for what they believe. So definitely stand with support.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why we should not be supporting the WGA strike. Everything they are fighting for is perfectly reasonable and understandable given the ways that they've been basically like screwed over by a lot of these big companies. Especially, like I mentioned, I'm super passionate about the preservation of the arts and the fact that they've just been devaluing their work and actively deleting their things that they have written, things that they've created just so they don't pay them, and just all the loopholes they've been exploiting has just been ridiculous. And we need to ensure that we support them in whatever way we can.
Definitely. I mean, I totally agree. I honestly think it's just like unbelievable that this is even a thing. And what's even more unbelievable to me is the backlash that has been like met with the strikes by like the everyday Joe. Some of the things that I wrote down were people believing that AI can replace them, that like erase writers in general, just ChatGPT at all, that in all industry professionals, everybody who works in Hollywood is spoiled and rich, which is so far from the truth. Absolutely. That everything is just a remake or a sequel, so why do we need new writers anyways? And it's just unbelievable to me. And like that last one specifically of this whole thing about everything is just a remake or a sequel, that's their fault. Yeah. If you don't want another sequel, don't go to the theater and watch another sequel. Like we've all known and fallen in love with so many like brand new movies, new IP, new diverse writers, new voices, actors, and people still aren't supporting those. And that's not necessarily like the everyday person's fault, but that's a big part of the industry's fault. They don't want to spend their money and support these diverse writers and diverse actors and new voices. They want to like keep on making money in the Disney spectrum or the Marvel spectrum. And I still love those things, but I want it all. And I hate that at this point, it's almost like we're having to choose between one or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like too, kind of touching on what you were talking about with the everyone in Hollywood is like spoiled and rich. You know, that's an argument that I've seen a lot on, especially social media. You know, I want to say a couple of days ago when Aaron Paul made headlines when he and revealed basically that he made $0 in streaming residuals from Breaking Down.
No, that's crazy. That show's been on there since like 2013.
Yeah.
Over 10 years, absolutely no money.
But what I found was so startling and shocking was that the response to him was that, oh, well, he's already a millionaire. Like he's so spoiled he wants more. But the thing that I really like wish people understood is that, you know, these films and these television shows, it is a lucrative industry. They are making money and there's no way to get around that. But the question isn't necessarily, oh, these people who are, you know, acting, writing, whatever it may be, they're so spoiled and they want more money. It's no, all of this money is already being made regardless of, you know, what they feel. But it's a question of like, where should that money end up going?
Sure.
You know, do we want to support this, you know, culture of underpaying the people that ultimately create these things in favor of, you know, massive like studio investment?
Exactly.
You know,
it's like, yeah, when a great show comes out and they get all this money, are we going to give it to people that created the show or the big execs in suits that greenlit it 7 years ago without knowing what it was and are now not only billionaires but multi-billionaires?
Yeah, it's film and TV. If you're thinking about it like from business like perspective, it is a product that's being made. If you're someone who creates a product and sells your product, you're going to make money off of that. And I don't understand why in the entertainment industry, the product you make, you don't get money off of. And it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I think a lot of people also forget how much money actors have to pay for things outside of in order to stay in the industry, basically.
Yeah.
So like, they might be getting like $1 million or whatever, but how much of that money is going to their agents, going to their lawyers, going to all the other things they have to attend, all of the things they have to do, basically to just keep afloat in the industry? People forget that as well.
Yeah. And like even people that use examples of like, oh my gosh, well, Zendaya's going to make $1 million per episode in Euphoria season 3, or that Tom Cruise just made 7 Mission Impossible movies and he's getting paid. They are the utmost exceptions. Like the entertainment industry employs millions of U.S. people every year. It is a huge, huge, huge industry where the vast majority of them are struggling to have a stable income.
And also, it wasn't like that until very, very recently.
Exactly.
For a while, like, you could be a regular actor, not crazy famous or anything, and you could make a solid living. You could have a house, you could have a car, you could afford basic things. Now nobody can do that on an actor's paycheck.
Yeah, and people, back to the thing about like the A-list actors and like the regular argument against like the SAG strike and the WGA strike is like people talking about Aaron Paul and actors that are actively sharing like the wealth that they receive from films. They're fighting and sharing their stories to uplift the voices of the tens of thousands of SAG members that don't even qualify for healthcare. And so people just make that argument of like, well, it's the big celebrities, the A-listers that I'm seeing on the lines. Well, that's who paparazzi is showing on the front lines. But there's the same actors and writers every single day walking the picket line for their rights.
Yeah. I also just want to touch on this whole thing where I felt like I didn't even realize until I went to film school. And it's the idea that like everybody joshes on people in Hollywood because they're spoiled and they go up there and they act, they go up there, they just sit in a room and write a little TV show. But this is very, very, very difficult work. Like any of these productions, any TV show that you've seen, any movie that anyone has seen has taken years and years to produce, and dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of different workers. And it's hard. It's a gate-kept business. It's hard to get in, and it's even harder to stay in. And it's just so frustrating as someone who wants to pursue a career in the entertainment industry that like finally we're like the unions are getting together and they're fighting for what they believe in, and they're met with all these people that want to like shit on them. Yeah. And it's like, why? I don't understand it.
The amount of people this summer that said to me as an intern, I'm so happy that people still want to get into this industry right now. It was just like an insane feeling.
And I think that's something that a lot of people take for granted is that, you know, it is such a difficult industry and it's not one that is particularly, you know, lucrative right now for a majority of these creatives. And I think that it really goes to show just how passionate these people are about what they do. And I wish that that was something that was more properly conveyed, you know, in the mass like appeal. I think a lot of people see these like Hollywood, you know, rich people and they think, oh, well, they're, you know, they're bratty, they're spoiled. But the reality is that the majority of people that put these things together are doing it because they love it. And that's why, you know, not because they're making a huge paycheck.
It's exhausting. I mean, I get exhausted working on a 2-day student film set with 15 people, you know, and people talk about it being a cushy job, but people are putting in extreme overtime all the time without pay.
Exactly.
Yeah, I also want to bring up the AI of it all. Obviously, it's a big thing. The WGA, their demands is keeping them out of the writer's room, but also in SAG-AFTRA of this whole idea of being able to buy one's likeness for $1,000 and being able to use their likeness on any movie for the rest of time. Like that is immediately cutting out jobs and it's limiting creative freedom of actors. And I feel like I just have to say like people, regular Joes, whatever, that say like, good, use AI. Like who needs a writer's room where you can use ChatGPT? Like if you are saying this, you are anti-worker.
Yeah.
Like you are not, this is not individual to our field either. Like if you can if you think ChatGPT can write a TV show, it for damn sure can write some code.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's anti-worker. It's so frustrating that people think that it only affects careers in the arts. And it's this whole kind of ongoing thing that I'm sure dealt with since we were kids of like, arts is always a low priority. Arts is easier.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating that like, even through AI, everyone like still has that viewpoint.
I just don't know how you've ever related to a piece of TV, film, short film, any sort of media, how you could feel okay with that just going away and being a computer.
Like the beauty of art is that it comes from someone. It comes from someone's not necessarily lived experiences, but from they put their work into it. They put their passion into it. With AI, you get none of that.
Exactly.
It's how I understand people. I use film and TV to understand my surroundings, make human connection. And like the idea of just a computer writing that is just so false. It's so fake. You don't go to an art museum to see a rendering of a Picasso. You go to see the Picasso because Picasso made it. Yeah. And same with film and TV. It should be regarded in the same light.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like all of the AI, all of the, digital likeness, it's ghoulish to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it nothing speaks more to a disrespect of creatives to me than, this push for AI. And it seems like something that would be such an easy demand to make.
I know.
I mean, it baffles me that it's something that studios are just so unwilling to fold on. Of all the demands that the WGA has made, it seems like that would be the most no-brainer. But I know a lot of people that I talk to are, not necessarily worried about it, because in their eyes, it's like, obviously, yeah, like the human element's gone. We don't want the AI. But I think what concerns me is just this idea of, taking AI as an excuse to, obviously there's been a lot of talk about having AI scripts written and then calling in writers for like a retool, a retouch. And in reality, it's like, no, you're having to basically write a completely original script. But it's just all of these loopholes, that are being used to essentially like, disrespect, discredit, and disenfranchise these like workers. I can't wrap my head around why anyone would think that it's moral.
And the reason they want to do that is because also they don't want to pay actors for using their AI.
Yeah.
And I also think it's really crazy that they just also want, for like more famous actors and stuff, they just want to like make them say things that they've never said, things like that. I remember a few years back, there was this documentary about Anthony Bourdain that came out on HBO Max. Well, Max or whatever it's called now. But basically, they had even though he was like dead, they made an AI bot sound like his voice or something like that. And then they made it read a letter that he wrote. And his wife actively opposed that. Like, she was like, I will not like consent to this, but they did it anyway. And the fact that it just gives people like a sense of entitlement over their work and their likeness is just ridiculous to me.
I just think it's sad because like, it's like, of course it's the writers. Like the writers historically in Hollywood have always get screwed. There's this really famous book called The Writer Gets Screwed that talks about how all of Hollywood is set up to exploit the work of writers and then to leave them empty-handed. And it's this whole kind of cycle where writers spend years of their life making this script and they finally option it, they finally get it to sell somewhere, and then they get like a decent amount of money for like us, but like if you're like living and you're 40 years old and you have 2 kids, like it's not enough. And then they have 12 to 18 months to do something with it, and if nothing happens, it gets dropped and they keep their money, but their baby will never get made. And like beyond that, like writers can sign away the rights to a script and then they can just completely change it. And so like they can get their writing credits revoked afterwards. They can be brought on to do rewrites and then not get credited at all. It's just so sad that like historically the writers have been screwed on Hollywood, and then still as more technology advances, that's the more they get screwed. It's like win what we win.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, yeah, I mean, it's sad. It's one of those things where, going into this industry and wanting to do something like that, there's sort of this idea of like, do I really want to like put myself through that? Like, is it really worth like going through all of this hell just to do, writing? And I think to me, living through that and having that like thought process going through my head like 24/7, it just makes me so much more sympathetic to the people that are really out there doing it and, having to fight the fight right now as they have for, the last however long Hollywood has been around. I mean, it's an ongoing fight from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. That also, I want to ask you, AK, you said that you were working in LA this summer, which is in the midst of the strike and everything. How was that for you? How did it affect your work? How did it affect like the community around you? How were the feelings?
Yeah, there was more of a sense of unity like in my companies. I felt like assistants were really looking out for me and just kind of acknowledging that times were hard and times were difficult and being like, hey, we're struggling too, like it's different for everybody. So that was really cool to see like a more solidarity and more unity within it. It was really interesting. There were so many days where I was supposed to be a fully in-person intern at both of my internships. And by the time that I got there this summer, I was working 2 days in person, 3 days remote. And there were so many 8-hour days where I would log on to Slack. I'm here. Good morning. What do you have for me? And just nothing. The response, like they would respond, but it would just be like, you know, we're sitting here in our rooms too, just waiting. And so it was a lot of waiting and a lot of just like really, really feeling the lack. It was an interesting learning experience. I was working with one company that switched a lot to reading books and like already written IP. So I was reading a lot of novels. And so that was an interesting thing that I wasn't expecting from my summer. Another company had international focus. And so started looking at like more international scripts and things like that, which was really cool and really interesting to see how that went. But the moment that SAG started striking too, it all stopped. There's a little bit you could do, a little wiggle room, you know, waiting it out. But the moment that the double strike started, it just went quiet. And there were so many days where it was just apologies to me. And, you know, as someone that graduated high school in COVID and is now graduating probably into a double strike, I feel like I'm just used to it at this point of just like complete uncertainty. No, literally, there was also my supervisor was like, God, you're too forgiving, Annika. Like, you're too understanding. And I was like, what else am I supposed to do? Like, at least I'm still a student right now, and at least I still have some time. So it's just a weird learning experience, a lot of flexibility, and just learning that everything that I expected on my summer wasn't going to happen. And that was okay. But I got to meet a lot more people. A lot of people in both companies reached out to interns and set meetings because they didn't have meetings with other people. So I met with them. So that was really cool.
It was interesting for me too. I was working in the entertainment industry in New York, and we had day lines Monday through Thursday every single morning. I worked in Times Square. I had to walk past the picket line to get into work every single day.
Wow.
And it was so hard. Yeah. And it's like you feel like a scab yourself for walking past, but it's like, fuck, like I want to get into this entertainment industry, and I have to do this shit. Like, we have this stupid pipeline of working internships to finally get like a chance at a break, and then maybe you get your break. But I had to cross that every day. And we had, I think in New York, there were about 150 Paramount interns. And so we had a lot of like kind of community Paramount intern events. And I think you could feel it in the room, in the air. Everyone is always like on edge. It was like you met someone who was like, hey, how are you? Where are you from? What school do you go to? What department do you work in? How do you do about the strike? Yeah. And it was like, that was always in the air. And even with not just interns, but all my coworkers, it was like, that was just kind of this thing that was going on for everybody. And it was odd because like I had an opportunity to I served as BK operator for an interview with the CEO of Paramount, one of like the main decision makers that's in this whole WGA crisis. And like I told myself, like, I'm wearing this shirt when I interview him, like I'm going to see. And then like I just was so scared. Like I was so scared, and I just realized like I'm an intern, like what am I going to do? And that just made me have so much more like pride and empathy for all those people that are going and picketing and going and decided to sign away a couple of months of their pay to go put themselves on the line for something that's greater good. Because it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. But yeah, it was just interesting. Like a couple of things, like we had like a global summit where we had like executive speakers speak, and some of those had to get canceled because they're also writers, or some of them had talent attached and those had to get canceled. Some of them we shot, and then immediately after they were like, sorry, you could not air that anywhere. It's just, it's a hard time right now. And I guess I want to ask you, and then to both of y'all as well, how do you see the strike affecting our futures? Do you see it ending anytime soon? What do you see the outcome being?
It's really scary to be. Like, it's just scary. And I know that what is being fought for is good, and it's creating protections for future jobs and students and people who are just now entering the industry, but it is really scary to see it last this long and like entertainment is a business. Yes, things have to be profitable. Like it always has been and it always will be, but seeing it have such a business focus is so scary. And like just all about profit margins and all of these things, and like just become this business in such a different way than it was. But something this summer that was good to me and gives me a lot of hope was working with the producers that aren't in the AMPTP, the regular executives, the creative executives, the assistants, all of the people that were attainable, even the presidents that I was working under at one of my internships, like do stand with the strikes and like do believe in what the strikes are standing for. And so there was a really, I don't know, just a feeling of calmness, at least that there's enough people that do care and do believe, and that it's the top of the line that has this decision, has this power, and is fighting against us. But there's a really large group of people that are fighting for good. But I am scared. I'm really scared to graduate. I'm scared to move to LA and
Me too.
8 months. I don't know how many months less than that. And not even know if when I move to LA that there will be a job to be had or if things are in production or what that's looking for. I watched layoffs happen at both companies consistently. It would come in and you would hear, oh, blah, blah, blah from this department. Got let off today. And so it was scary sitting there as an intern. I'm like, my job's secure for the 2 months that I'm here, but watching so many people have to leave and at not the company's fault at all. So it's scary, but hoping that what is being fought for will eventually be won and that'll provide protections for us. But
It's a little be one. Like, I don't see a way out of this. I really don't. Like, I don't know how long they can go without paying their writers and their actors. Like, just recently, like, they mentioned that Warner Bros. is like losing almost like $200 to $500 million. And that's way more than the writers were even asking for. Like, eventually they're going to lose a lot of money and they're going to have to somehow cave. At least that's what I'm hoping.
And I don't, for someone like me, I'm sure it's a lot different for, the two of y'all, especially in your last year of college, about to jump into that industry. Being a sophomore and still having a little bit more time ahead of me, it's been a little bit less frightening. But I absolutely understand. Like, it's still scary. There's this feeling of, obviously, there is a grateful feeling for me in the sense where it's like, I'm glad that we're fighting for this, like, before I'm about to go into this industry. But at the same time, it's just such a different media landscape than it was 5 years ago even. I mean, I feel like the thing that has consistently kind of worried me is just that, a lot of these like big AMPT,
yes,
producers and production companies are almost completely different animals than the studios were at the beginning of the century, or what I mean, it's
beginning of the decade.
Beginning of the decade. I mean, it's Amazon owns MGM now. Warner Brothers is now part of a larger media conglomerate. Disney is an ultimate powerhouse with news, sports. No longer is a studio just making movies and TV. And to me, what's scary about that is that it gives these AMPTP studios so much more power over the narrative of it all. And I think what's frightening is coming out of something like COVID and having, theaters are already at one of the lowest that they've been in a long time. They're already kind of fighting for their life. Television has almost like indefinitely shifted into a streaming world now. And all of these other massive changes that feel like they just gave the studios so much power over the general public. And I think that absolutely, I think at some point that there's going to be, a cave from the studios. I think that there's no getting around it. And after a while, it's like Samia said, like, they're already losing more money now than they would have if they just met the demands. But I think what's frightening is, how long can they keep riding this on the legs of all of the other media that's being produced outside of this, scripted content.
Yeah. Something that scares me so much is you brought up Amazon owning MGM, and there's companies like Apple who are tech companies on the forefront who now have one of the largest stakes in entertainment, and their CEOs are fighting like a tech company and not like an art company. And that scares me so much. And that's something that's so different in the last 5 years. And yes, I love so much of the content that they're creating, and it would be such a loss to see them not creating that content. But it is really scary when these companies, their side efforts are entertainment, and that's like our careers as futures. Yeah. And it's just a hobby.
I'm definitely scared, but I also have this odd sense of hope about everything.
Yeah.
Scarily though, like when I was on my internship, like twiddling my thumbs at my desk doing no work.
Just playing.
Paramount's a public company, so we could look up their quarter earnings. And I did the math, and I looked up how much the WGA wants, how much like that his contracts would do in a year, and like I did the math on Paramount's Q1 earnings and like divided that by the amount of days. Paramount could have met the demands of the WGA with 12 hours of work, with half of one day's revenue, not even like their total sales, whatever. In revenue, they could have met it. So that's scary because like if they're willing to do that after 100+ days, like when will it end? And then like when will this kind of appreciation begin again, or will it ever come back? But this may be very silly of me to even think, but I don't know. I feel like while this whole kind of strike has been almost ostracizing and polarizing for kind of like entertainment viewers, entertainment and enjoyers, and I feel like at some point some will be like, no, fuck that. Like, I'm not going to watch these movies anymore because they're so privileged. But a lot of people like us are like, no, we will go to the theaters more now and we will support everything. And so I really hope that, one, theaters come back. Like there have been so many great movies that have come out this summer that have caused such a huge wave to the theater. Yeah, and really great. Now I'm selfishly hoping for this whole kind of maybe people that are done with the television industry because it's simply not the same as it was before. So that they do turn towards cinema and towards film, and we get this big wave of independent movies. Yeah, like which would be so amazing. And like there have been so many new IPs that have came out recently that I've just been completely in love with. Past Lives is one of the best things I've seen in years. Yes. Shortcomings is another great Asian story. It's like It Lives Inside is a new neon film with about a South Asian teen horror. Like it's great stuff coming out, and I just hope that there's still going to be an audience for it after all of this.
I'm definitely with you on what you said about indie films as well, especially because A24, Neon, and lots of great indie film companies have agreed to the demands and are still allowed to film. So I'm, as awful and scary as it is for a lot of bigger companies, I'm really excited to see some of the indie films that come out soon.
Definitely.
Yeah, just like the statement of A24 and Neon and so many companies meeting the demands of writers gives me hope because there's so many companies that do value the writers and their actors and people. But it is so crazy when Bob Iger says that the demands are gross and unattainable. At A24, an independent production company, has met the demands.
40th of the size of Disney.
Like that's just insane to me. And so people hear Bob Iger and hear the massive CEOs because that's who makes it on to Twitter or X or whatever, and like read those and think that it's irresponsible and not possible, and then they're missing out on the companies that are meeting the demands and the companies that are independently financed and independently sourced, and they're able to do it. And so it's not unattainable.
Yeah. I also want to point out a couple of the hate tweets that I saw about the WGA, and we'll just pick our thoughts on them.
Are they still called tweets? It's off X.
X's.
Posts. I think this. Oh, I hate that.
Hate them as much as your ex.
We do a full podcast on that.
All right, this one, the name is blocked out from May 2nd, 2023. So a little bit ago, Strike was just,
curly Disney.
Yeah. All I see are people who work in a billion-dollar industry who are probably making a decent living already, are protesting for more money in an economy where a good chunk of people can't afford their groceries. These are also the same people who want to keep the old establishment of Hollywood in power and crush independent creators and media. Honestly, I hope they fail.
Yeah, the assistants and the creative execs I worked under definitely had a living wage. It definitely wasn't really hard for them to see both Barbie and Oppenheimer. Most of the people I worked under had to pick one because that was too much out of their budget. And they were in a multi-story office in these desks and in this nice place and can't even make enough to go see 2 movies in Los Angeles. It's just crazy.
Here's another one from May 5th. Privileged Hollywood Union, which wants to restrict AI because it's better than them. These are some of the richest and horrible people in the world protesting.
It is better than them, though.
Girl, I think you read it twisted.
Oh, wait. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, I think, they're better than AI, I think.
Agree.
I agree.
I just feel like it's, it's like you're dancing around the point. It's like we're acknowledging that this is $1 billion industry. Yeah. We're acknowledging that they're making money already. What I don't understand is that, part of it is I think that studios have crafted this narrative, but I don't get when people are like, oh my gosh, they just want more money and they're already making billions of dollars. It's like, no, they're wanting more of the money that's already being made off because of labor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's also so many other billion-dollar industries.
I know.
So many products we have at our houses, like, are from billion-dollar industries, and I hope that the person who invented those products get the freaking money.
And they usually will.
God, yeah, exactly. I hope the person who made my Ninja air fryer is getting cool. It's awesome.
Here's another one, also from May 2nd.
Wow, they're also early. Jeez.
They don't need our money. It's not like they're making minimum wage.
Oh,
With that, it's the phraseology, you know, like they don't need our money. It's this narrative that's been pushed where it's like, in order to pay the writers, like you as the consumer, it's coming out of your pocket. But it's not true. I mean, we're already giving studios money. It's not coming out of the consumer's pocket. It's not hurting anyone. Even, I mean, I wouldn't say it's hurting the producers that are already making, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars.
I love being an unpaid intern. I think there's nothing better. Oh my goodness. Sarcasm for anyone listening on audio.
This is one that I talked about before, but it really does upset me. The last thing Hollywood writers need is a raise. They need to write better stories instead of rehashing old shit.
Ready? Here's my take on that. We used to get residuals from cable networks. Your episodes would replay. That was a thing that was understood and like widely accepted. And now we went to streaming and we decided one set residual, no matter how good your show is, we're just trying to go back to a formula that was already working.
I think
I don't understand why that's so insane.
one thing that I've tried to, you know, talk to people about when I talk about the strikes is that, you know, I keep bringing up the whole like shifting industry, but it's true. In the old days, you know, obviously it's always been a profit-driven industry and there's no getting around that. But to a certain extent, you had to make good content to make money.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I mean, something that is a massive hit is going to pull in so much more revenue than something that's not. But I feel like we're entering this landscape where, you know, it's not that writers are interested in going back to Star Wars for the 40,000th time. It's that studios are. Studios make money off of things that are already existing. And so they're like, okay, this is what we're going to greenlight. You know, it's all about this shift into, you know, we don't need to make good content to make money. We just need to make recognizable content.
Yeah.
And I think that mindset, like you said, it's, you know, these are tech company CEOs. Like, these are people that are not entrenched in the artistic industry. You know, they see the numbers, and if Star Wars is going to get more streams than, you know, more guaranteed streams, I should say, than a project that they know nothing about, they're going to do Star Wars.
What's so scary about that, though, is we don't know how many hours are being streamed. Like, all of the streamers are, like, they don't have a rule of what they have to release. They just say, this is the most popular show on Netflix right now, without providing any of the data. We used to have Nielsen ratings. We used to know how many screens episodes played on, and now it's just word of mouth and what they believe. And the problem is that no matter if your show is the most successful on the network, on the streamer, or the absolute minimum, you get paid the exact same amount for your show being on a streamer, and that just doesn't make sense. We used to pay on if your show was getting watched, and now we get paid if your show exists, no matter if it's Stranger Things, who gets watched at every single household, or a show you've never heard of, they get the same set amount, and that just makes absolutely zero sense.
Yeah, now we just have to go off Netflix saying everything is the #1 show on our platform. Everything's #1 New York Times bestseller.
That's real. Oh my gosh. Yeah, every single show is the most watched Netflix show of all time, with a tiny little asterisk behind it that they don't actually describe. It's why.
All right, well, I guess to wrap things up, I do want to ask, what do y'all think we can do as an audience to not only show our solidarity with the WGA and SAG-AFTRA, but to kind of, you know, promote the industry that we've all been talking about wanting, about like promoting indie movies and doing this and doing this. What do you think are some of those things you can do?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's a very challenging area to navigate, especially with as little sway and as little influence and as little access to the industry, you know, as we and a lot of other people have. But I think part of it goes with, you know, one, I don't think that we should just like stop supporting, you know, original content. Like, go to the theater, you know, see movies, show that you care about quality, and show that you care about, you know, these new IPs and these new stories that are being told from diverse artists, show that there is an audience for that, for one thing.
Absolutely.
And also too, I think that part of it, it's just not, I don't know how to, I don't, yeah.
For me, it's continuing to have conversations about it. I've had multiple family members. I'm the only person in my family that is in entertainment in any capacity. So I've had a lot of family members ask me questions and just have open conversations about it. And just they're completely unaware of so many aspects, and they take the side of the WGA and SAG is wrong because they don't know any different.
Yeah.
And so getting to have those open conversations and share why I'm passionate about it and why they should be passionate about it too. Continuous education on the subject. I'm constantly listening to podcasts. I'm reading the WGA updates, everything that I can to make sure that I'm having the most accurate information so that I can have conversations about it. And again, just continually supporting the media that I care about. If y'all follow me on Instagram, I'm constantly posting trailers and things and telling people to watch things because I do care about it, and I want projects that are original and that matter to me to be seen. And so I think it's just continuing to fight through conversation and advocacy.
Yeah, I mean, I going off on you, I think countering misinformation is one of the key things we really need to do, because, we laugh at the tweets of these people who don't know any better, but we forget that there has been an active push to perpetuate those narratives, especially like thinking about like a lot of platforms like ABC, CNN, for example. Who are they owned by? The people they are fighting against. Of course, they have a motivation to push misinformation about the strike and about what people are fighting for. So we really have to counter that however we can.
Definitely. No, I agree. I mean, I think too, it's like people hear headlines. We live in like this headline culture.
Yeah.
People see things like Dune 2 delayed because of the WGA SAG-AFTRA.
Yeah, no, this is all the writers.
Exactly. And it is important to combat that and be like, well, no, it got delayed because studios weren't willing to negotiate. It got delayed because studios would rather not have a movie release than pay their talent in order to create.
I love how discussing film constantly tweets delays.
Oh my God. I love this.
It's delayed because studios still refuse to pay their writers and actors.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, yes, let's go.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. All the things y'all have said. Some of the ones I said specifically were buy tickets to film festivals.
Yes.
That's a great way to discover new talent. That's a great way to interact with talent, like talent, writers, producers, whatever, and to just like see indie movies and really support them. Like people, I think, don't really understand. Like for an indie writer, director, producer, like getting the movie into the film festival is huge for that. And if you're in that crowd and you're laughing and the whole crowd is there with you, the distributor that's sitting there watching and judging, that can be the thing that ticks for that. I said to support indie voices, which you talked about. If you're in a city that can, get involved with the strikes.
Yeah.
Pick it, go walk, show your solidarity. It's fun. You meet the coolest people.
I love the honk.
And
Have to sing in LA.
I said, like you said, educate yourself constantly. And my two other ones, I think, are to practice what you preach in film school.
Yeah.
Like when we're in this kind of microcosm of the industry right now, be collaborative, be kind to your writers, treat your talent with respect. Oh my God, so many student directors, they do not know how to speak with talent. They don't know how to like manage their time. It's really, really hard. And like, if that's something you think that you struggle with, educate yourself, read a book about it, talk to other filmmakers, talk to your professors. Like, don't perpetuate this kind of ill intent and like malpractice towards actors, towards writers, to crew members, to anybody in the industry. Like, really do practice what you preach in film school. And the last one is to advocate for writers and industry professionals, and also advocate for yourself. Like I've said before, like I did not realize how tough film school really was until I got here. And now that I am here, I'm so much more proud to be a film student. Yeah. And when people say like, oh, he's a film major, like, I know she's not busy, she's a film major. Like, don't take it. Like we have like work to do. We have engaging and difficult and hard work that's also fulfilling.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the whole kind of thing that goes on in Hollywood. And I think it all kind of starts here. Yeah. And so really like practice what you preach now and advocate for yourself, advocate for your industry. And yeah.
Use your Friday nights to talk about it. That's what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Sit around the table and talk about this strike on Friday night.
Yeah.
All right. Well, does anyone have any closing remarks?
Things like that.
Stand up the WGA and SAG-AFTRA.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hot union summer, going into hot union fall.
Hot union fall.
Hot union all year round.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. This was a great first episode of The Sync Podcast. You can see us on Spotify at The Sync Podcast, and we should have some segments, if not full episodes, on YouTube, and hopefully some clips on Instagram or TikTok would be great. But yeah, I'm sure this will be the first, but not the last. So we'll see you next time, Sync Peakers.
Bye.
All right. Cutting.